One of the things that Katie and I talked about is just the initiative overload in education. There's so much thrown at teachers, and wouldn't it be nice if they had frameworks that will be helpful for the life of their career, and also frameworks that help them to navigate what is an evolving educational landscape, right? So sure, the pandemic was awful. It had this big disruption on education, but there's no guarantees we couldn't end up in a similar situation in 6 months and a year. And so as Katie and I worked together, it was like, here are these principles and kind of tenets of universal design that are so important, but they can be a little daunting to implement generally. And then also as teachers are kind of navigating this very fluid situation where they're online, they're in class, they're a blend of the two. So how do we help them understand how to take these universal design principles and these tenets and actualize them using these different models, which from my perspective, and it was so exciting working with Katie, because I'm all about that teacher realizing that our value isn't in our subject area expertise. It's not us at the front of a physical or virtual room. It's us connecting with learners. It is that human side of teaching that is so critical, and we need to lean on these models in order to have more opportunities to connect with individual learners, small groups of learners, give them meaningful choices within the design and the facilitation of these learning experiences. So it was just this really beautiful complement of, anybody who learns about universal design, I mean, you can't argue with how valuable that is. I think it's just how do we implement it in a way that feels sustainable given all of the demands on teachers and this kind of changing landscape that we're in.
Katie, what do you got to add to that?
Yeah, and I think another thing too is that, UDL at its core is, right now people are designing learning experiences. Everyone is designing learning experiences, but we're not providing students with equally relevant or valuable opportunities to learn. And that is because the way that we're designing wasn't, it's not flexible enough to meet the needs of everyone. So, are we looking for, I think that there's this friction of talking about does this mean everyone's going to have the same exact outcomes?
Right.
No, because we know about human variability. And, there will always be people who are stronger at writing, and there'll always be people who are taller, and there'll always, there is variability, but we shouldn't be able to predict outcomes based on identity of students. Is that we want to give equal opportunities to access instruction that is rigorous, instruction that allows students to learn and share what they know. And then we'll have, equal opportunities, equal access will result in higher levels of learning. But I think that some people want to throw this out because it's there's never going to be a time that every single student performs in the same exact way. Well, that is correct because we are not robots. And so I think that understanding variability and knowing that when students don't have really solid, rigorous opportunities to learn, it's often because it just simply is not flexible enough. And when we can name those barriers and we can say, you know what, we can actually design these differently, then more students will learn. So one really generic example is you could say I'm a strong reader. You could label me as a strong reader, but that is only when you give me text in English. And that is only when I'm wearing corrective lenses because I can't see without contacts or glasses. Those just happen to be two things that are always provided to students. And so it's not that I'm a stronger reader. It's the tools that I need are accepted in classrooms. And what we find with universal design is if a student, for instance, is not reading at grade level, the answer is not just give them a really easy text. It's do they need an audio version? Do they need to read it with a partner? Do we need to pre-teach vocabulary? And so I love the framework because it's thinking about what really are the barriers that students are facing and how can we eliminate those through design, but knowing that so many students are different, pulling small groups really is the answer. And we cannot give every kid what they need when we are meeting or facing 45 kids in a classroom because they don't all need a printed book in English, that they can see. So I think that if we want to meet the needs of all students, we need to leverage instructional design that is not only flexible enough for students to get what they need, but flexible enough to give us time with individual kids and small groups to build those relationships and help them to recognize these are the tools that you need to advocate for in your learning so you can be successful.